on Jeremiah chapter 19. And if you'll recall last week, we were on Jeremiah 18 and we talked about the potter and the clay. And the potter, he said, now I want you to watch that potter. He's going to work that wheel and he's going to work that clay and mold it the way he wants it. And he says that Elohim points out he's the potter and Israel is the clay. And he's going to mold them in the way that he wants them. Now he's going to continue on that theme here in chapter 19. In verse 1 it says, thus says Yahweh, go and buy a potter's earthenware jar and take some of the elders of the people and some of the senior priests. Okay, now here he's telling Jeremiah to buy a finished earthenware jar. You know, it's a little different now. It's no longer, you can't take an earthenware jar that's already been hardened in the furnace and shape it into anything else. You know, if it's not any good by that time, what do you do with it? You smash it. Okay? And Judah has arrived at that stage. They're severely damaged, warped, and they're hardened. And that's a problem. He says in verse 2, then go out to the valley of Ben Hinnom, which is by the entrance of the potsherd gate, and proclaim there the words that I shall tell you. So he's told to take some of the leaders of the people and go to the potsherd gate in the valley of Ben Hinnom. Now it was located southwest of Jerusalem, and that was the place where broken pottery was thrown. I mean, what good is pottery that's been cracked in half? Nothing. You know, it's not good for anything. So they would throw it down in that valley. Verse 3, and say, hear the word of Yahweh, O kings of Judah and inhabitants of Jerusalem. Thus says the Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel. Behold, I'm about to bring a calamity upon this place, at which the ears of everyone that hears of it will tingle. Because they've forsaken me, and have made this an alien place, and have burned sacrifices in it to other gods that neither they nor their forefathers, nor the kings of Judah had ever known, and because they have filled this place with innocent blood. Well, Elohim's going to bring calamity upon Judah and Jerusalem because they've turned that land into what he calls an alien place. Okay, that's supposed to be his land, their land. They've turned it into an alien place, a place where aliens or pagans have inhabited it. They burned sacrifices to other gods. They filled the land with the innocent blood of small children. The valley of Ben Hinnom is where the sacrificing of the children was taking place. In Jeremiah 7, verse 31, we read, and they have built the high places of Topheth, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, to burn their sons and their daughters in the fire, which I did not command, and it did not come into my mind. The valley of the son of Hinnom, and here we see in the other passage it says the valley of Ben Hinnom. What's the difference between Ben Hinnom and son of Hinnom? What does Ben mean? Son. So I don't know why they translated it different, but it's the same place that he's talking about here. And he says here, they're burning their sons and their daughters in the fire. And apparently this is, the implication here, they're doing it more often than the pagan nations around them. Sacrificing their babies and burning them to false gods. And he says, this is something I did not command. It didn't come into my mind that you would do this. And he's not saying that I didn't know you were going to do this, because he did. He also told them that they can't do that. That was in the Torah. But what he's saying is, I can't believe you're doing this. You people are savages. You would say animals, but animals don't do that. They don't sacrifice their children. They protect their children. Jeremiah 19, verse 5, and it built the high places of Baal to burn their sons in the fire as burnt offerings to Baal, a thing which I never commanded or spoke of, nor did it ever enter my mind. There he repeats that, what he said earlier in Jeremiah. Human sacrifice was practiced in Judah during the time of King Ahaz and King Manasseh. But the high places, you see, were destroyed when King Josiah came around. That's in 2 Kings 23, starting at verse 8. We read, "Then he brought all the priests in the cities, from the cities of Judah and defiled the high places where the priests had burned incense, from Geba to Beersheba. And he broke down the high places of the gates, which were at the entrance of the gate of Joshua, the governor of the city, which were on one's left at the city gate. Nevertheless, the priests of the high places did not come up to the altar of Yahweh in Jerusalem, but they ate unleavened bread among their brothers. He also defiled Topheth, which is in the valley of the son of Hinnom, so that no man might make his son or daughter pass through the fire for Molech." Well, that was King Josiah. He did away with that. But Jeremiah is now speaking to King Jehoiakim. And he may have brought those things back, and apparently he did. Verse 6, "Therefore, behold, days are coming, declares Yahweh, when this place will no longer be called Topheth or the valley of Ben Hinnom, but rather the valley of slaughter." Okay, now Hinnom, that's a reference to Gehenna. Now, what's Gehenna? Anybody recall? That's the dump outside of Jerusalem. They kept a fire burning in there to do away with the waste. Topheth means fireplace. Elohim says that place will soon be known as the Valley of the Slaughter. And, you know, it's the first thing you think is, how could you sacrifice your children? That's unthinkable. How could you burn your children or burn them up to another god or whatever? And good grief, I think they're rookies at it compared to how we are today. How many abortions do we have a year here? Yeah. Right, a lot of children that nobody wanted to claim, yeah. But, I mean, how is that different from what's happening today? You know, once you cross this line, once you cross the lines of sin, for instance, the sexual immorality, once you start doing it, you know, it's not that big of a deal. All right? The second and third time that someone does it. That's why homosexuality is popular. You know, try it. Well, I'm not a homosexual. Well, have you tried it? How do you know if you are or aren't if you hadn't tried it? Once you've crossed those barriers, it's just not, you know, it's unthinkable. But then when you start doing those things, well, it's not a big deal. In your mind, the guilt leaves. Same thing with sacrificing your children. Be the same way. Abortions. Well, that first one's probably tough. But the 6th and 7th ones aren't a big deal. That's how it is. That's how sin works. It festers. You know, you go from being something that Elohim can mold, and then you become a hardened, broken piece of pottery. And what good are you then? Then it's time to smash it. Get rid of it. That's all that can happen. Well, he says Jerusalem and Judah, it's going to be called the Valley of Slaughter. Verse 7, "And I shall make void the counsel of Judah and Jerusalem in this place, and I shall cause them to fall by the sword before their enemies and by the hand of those who seek their life. And I shall give over their carcasses as food for the birds of the sky and the beasts of the earth." Elohim is going to make the counsel of their wise men and their leaders void. They're going to give horrible advice and lies, whether they know it or not, so as to keep the people unaware of the coming destruction. Then their carcasses are going to be food for the carrion birds and other scavengers. That's what the false prophets do. They keep people unaware of the doom that's coming. Okay? Keep them comfortable in their sin. Make them happy, comfortable. Then what happens when destruction comes on them? It's quick. There's nothing they could do about it. Verses 8 and 9. I shall also make this city a desolation and an object of hissing. And everyone who passes by it will be astonished and hiss because of all its disasters. And I shall make them eat the flesh of their sons and the flesh of their daughters. And they'll eat one another's flesh in the siege and in the distress with which their enemies and those who seek their life will distress them. Those who tried to stay in Jerusalem would eventually resort to cannibalism of their children because the food supply will be cut off. We read in Lamentations. Now, who wrote Lamentations? Mr. Lamentate? Who was it? Jeremiah wrote it, that's right. And when did he write it? After Jeremiah? It was after the destruction. And the people were lamenting what happened. Okay? In Lamentations 2, verse 20, see, O Yahweh, and look, with whom have you dealt thus? Should women eat their offspring, the little ones who were born healthy? Should priest and prophet be slain in the sanctuary of Adonai? And then in Lamentations 4, verse 10, the hands of compassionate women boiled their own children. They became food for them because of the destruction of the daughter of my people. This, once again, if you're going to sacrifice your children anyway, how big of a step is it to cannibalize them? It's not a huge step. It's not a huge step. See, this was prophesied in the Torah. If disobedience happens, and it keeps happening, he said this would happen. In Deuteronomy 28, starting at verse 53, then you shall eat the offspring of your own body, the flesh of your sons and of your daughters, whom Yahweh your Elohim has given you during the siege and the distress by which your enemy shall oppress you. This is hundreds of years before Jeremiah. The man who is refined and very delicate among you shall be hostile toward his brother and toward the wife he cherishes and toward the rest of his children who remain, so that he will not give even one of them any of the flesh of his children which he shall eat, since he has nothing else left during the siege and the distress by which your enemy shall oppress you in all your towns. The refined and delicate woman among you, who would not venture to set the sole of her foot on the ground for delicateness and refinement, shall be hostile toward the husband she cherishes and toward her son and daughter, and toward her afterbirth which issues from between her legs, and toward her children whom she bears, for she shall eat them secretly for lack of anything else during the siege and the distress by which your enemy shall oppress you in your towns. If you are not careful to observe all the words of this Torah which are written in this book, to fear this honored and awesome name, Yahweh your Elohim, then Yahweh will bring extraordinary plagues on you and your descendants, even severe and lasting plagues and miserable and chronic sicknesses. Going back to Jeremiah 19, verses 10 and 11. Then you are to break the jar in the sight of the men who accompany you, and say to them, thus says the Yahweh of hosts, just so shall I break this people and this city, even as one breaks a potter's vessel which cannot again be repaired. And they will bury in Topheth because there is no other place for burial. Just like that jar that Jeremiah bought. The people are no longer moldable. Okay, they can't mold them into anything. And they're hardened in what they're doing. There's only one thing you can do with it. They can't be reshaped. They have to be broken and destroyed. Verses 12 and 13. This is how I shall treat this place and its inhabitants, declares Yahweh, so as to make this city like Topheth. What was Topheth again? Fireplace. And the houses of Jerusalem and the houses of the kings of Judah will be defiled like the place Topheth, because all the houses on whose rooftops they burned sacrifices to all the heavenly host and poured out libations to other gods. Elohim will destroy all of Judah and make it look like a fireplace. Now, the flat roofs of the houses in that day, that's where That's where they were offering sacrifices to the planets, to the stars, and to other gods. We read in Jeremiah 32, starting at verse 29, "And the Chaldeans who are fighting against this city shall enter and set this city on fire and burn it, with the houses where people have offered incense to Baal on their roofs, and poured out libations to other gods to provoke me to anger. Indeed, the sons of Israel and the sons of Judah have been doing only evil in my sight from their youth. For the sons of Israel have been only provoking me to anger by the work of their hands, declares Yahweh. Indeed, this city has been to me a provocation of my anger and my wrath from the day that they built it, even to this day that it should be removed from before my face. Because of the evil of the sons of Israel and the sons of Judah, which they've done to provoke me to anger, they, their kings, their leaders, their priests, their prophets, the men of Judah, and the inhabitants of Jerusalem. And they've turned their back to me and not their face, though I taught them, teaching again and again that they would not listen and receive instruction. But they put their detestable things in the house which is called by my name to defile it. And they built the high places of Baal that are in the valley of Ben Hinnom to cause their sons and their daughters to pass through the fire to Moloch, which I had not commanded them, nor had it entered my mind that they should do this abomination to cause Judah to sin." Verses 14 and 15 of Jeremiah 19. "Then Jeremiah came from Topheth, where Yahweh had sent him to prophesy, and he stood in the court of Yahweh's house and said to all the people, 'Thus says Yahweh of hosts, the Elohim of Israel, Behold, I'm about to bring on this city and all its towns the entire calamity that I have declared against it, because they have stiffened their necks so as not to heed my words.'" Well, the entire calamity that Elohim warned them against is going to be brought against them. Babylon is going to lay siege against their cities, cut off their food supply to such a degree that they're going to resort to eating their own children. Then they're going to die by the sword and by fire. Those remaining will be carried off into captivity. It will be horrible, all because they refuse to heed the words of the Torah. And as you folks have been following Torah to the best of your ability for such and such time, what's so difficult about it? There's nothing difficult about it. It's a pleasure. It's a greater life. It brings life to a new level that you can't attain any other way. Yeah?
They have to be pretty stupid to kill their kid or do what Elohim tells them to do. I mean,
Tom, you know, look at what we do. We do it today. What do? We kill, 1.5 million babies a year here in this country? That's just this country. 1,200,000? Okay. 1.4 is just a peak year, I guess, huh? 52 million. Well, I guarantee you Judah and Israel didn't kill near that many. The less sensitive they are to it over time. Yeah. Yeah. Holocaust, there's more people that deny it now than ever. Why? Because they're further removed from it. It's, right. Well, okay, we have a man of Elohim here, Jeremiah, delivering this message to the people. How do you think he felt? How close to insanity would he go with this? Personally, how insane would he almost be having to deliver these messages? We're going to see. Jeremiah 20, verses 1 and 2, when Pashur, the priest, the son of Immer, who was chief officer in the house of Yahweh, heard Jeremiah prophesying these things, Pashur had Jeremiah the prophet beaten and put him in the stocks that were at the upper Benjamin gate, which was by the house of Yahweh. Now, Pashur is the high official in the temple. He had Jeremiah arrested for prophesying the opposite of what he was prophesying. He had Jeremiah beaten, put in stocks overnight so all the people could ridicule him. Verse 3, then it came about on the next day that Pashur released Jeremiah from the stocks. That Jeremiah said to him, Pashur is not the name Yahweh has called you, but Magor Misabib. Magor Misabib means terror on every side. This is what will happen to Pashur. He'll see terror on every side. And that's a symbol of what will happen to Judah when Babylon arrives. Verse 4. For thus says Yahweh, behold, I'm going to make you a terror to yourself and all your friends, and while your eyes look on, they'll fall by the sword of their enemies. So I shall give over all Judah to the hand of the king of Babylon, and he'll carry them away as exiles to Babylon, and will slay them with the sword. I shall also give over to all the wealth of this city, all its produce, all its costly things, even all the treasures of the kings of Judah. I shall give them over to the hand of their enemies, and they'll plunder them, take them away. And that last line isn't there. And bring them to Babylon. Well, Pashur is going to suffer greatly at the hands of the Babylonians. All of Judah is going to be given over to them. Okay, now why did Judah think they were okay? Why did they think they were safe? What was their reason? What were the false prophets saying?
Well, just the opposite of what Jeremiah was saying.
Why? What was their reasoning? Don't worry about what we're doing. We have the temple. We have the temple, and Elohim here. Nothing can happen to us. Okay? Don't worry about what you're doing. We have the temple here. Elohim will protect us. He's here with us. He's got the temple here. Don't worry about what you're doing. As long as you have Jesus here. Okay? As long as you have Jesus here. All right? And he knows what he's doing. And he loves you. Okay? Now tell me the difference. Not so much. Not so much. What are the false prophets telling the people today? Everything's going to be okie dokie as long as you love Jesus. Don't worry about it. Trump's going to fix everything. Yeah, that's what the false prophets are saying.
Well, it'd already be over. Never mind.
Verse 6. And you, Pashur, with all who live in your house will go into captivity, and you'll enter Babylon, and there you'll die. There you'll be buried, you and all your friends to whom you falsely prophesied. Well, Elohim is going to judge Pashur and his family. They're going to die in Babylon and be buried there. Verse 7, O Yahweh, you have deceived me, and I was deceived. And you've overcome me and prevailed. I've become a laughingstock all day long. Everyone mocks me. Jeremiah is having a meltdown of what you could call biblical proportions. Okay? He's blaming Elohim for not warning him about how tough this job as a prophet is going to be. Jeremiah forgets that he was warned by Elohim that time would be very, very difficult, but that he would provide Jeremiah all the strength he would need. Back in Jeremiah 1, verses 18 and 19, now behold, I've made you today as a fortified city, and as a pillar of iron, and as walls of bronze against the whole land, to the kings of Judah, to its princes, to its priests, and to the people of the land. And they'll fight against you, but they'll not overcome you, for I am with you to deliver you, declares Yahweh. Jeremiah 20, verses 8 and 9, for each time I speak, I cry aloud, I proclaim violence and destruction. Because for me, the word of Yahweh has resulted in reproach and derision all day long. But if I say I will not remember him or speak any more in his name, then in my heart it becomes like a burning fire shut up in my bones. And I'm weary of holding it in, and I cannot endure it. Every time Jeremiah speaks to the people, it's about violence and destruction. At times, he tries to hold the words of the Father in. Okay? He doesn't want to talk about it anymore. Every time he tries to say something different, His heart burns inside of him. Elohim won't let him say to the people that which he's not supposed to say, and he'll force him to say that which he wants him to say. He found it impossible to remain silent on the subject, and it's wearing him out. Verse 10, for I've heard the whispering of many, terror on every side. Denounce him, yes, let us denounce him. All my trusted friends, watching for my fall, say, perhaps he'll be deceived so that we may prevail against him and take our revenge on him. But Yahweh is with me like a dread champion. Therefore my persecutors will stumble and prevail. They'll be utterly ashamed because they've failed, with an everlasting disgrace that will not be forgotten. See, all his friends have turned on him now. He has nobody. He has no solace, no comfort from anyone. Elohim promised him that he would prevail. In Jeremiah 15, verse 20, then I will make you to this people a fortified wall of bronze. And though they fight against you, they will not prevail over you. For I'm with you to save you and to deliver you, declares Yahweh. Jeremiah 20, verses 12 and 13. Yet, O Yahweh of hosts, you who do test the righteous, who sees the mind and the heart, let me see your vengeance on them, for to you I've set forth my cause. Sing to Yahweh, praise Yahweh, for he has delivered the soul of the needy one from the hand of evildoers. Jeremiah wants to see the vengeance of Yahweh on those who have turned against him. He wants to see it. Then he voices trust in Elohim. But he communicates in a very direct way that he's still unhappy with this particular situation. Verses 14 and 15. Cursed be the day when I was born. Let the day not be blessed when my mother bore me. Cursed be the man who brought the news to my father, saying, a baby boy has been born to you, and made him very happy. See, I think he's losing his sanity to a degree. He's definitely, at the least, he's throwing a pity party here. He regrets the day he was born. Verse 16, but let the man be like the cities which Yahweh overthrew without relenting. Let him hear an outcry in the morning and a shout of alarm at noon, because he did not kill me before birth, so that my mother would have been my grave and her womb ever pregnant. Why did I ever come forth from the womb to look on trouble and sorrow, so that my days have been spent in shame? See, Jeremiah is hurting terribly. His message is just doom and destruction. That's all it is. It's doom and destruction. Everybody hates him. Everybody wants him dead because of these words that he can't keep from speaking. And that's the situation he's in. Any thoughts on Jeremiah 19 and 20? Just happy thoughts here, aren't there? Yeah, this is Job-like stuff, isn't it? It's all because they won't obey the Torah. And then this is it. When man goes so long in disobedience to the Father, how much further can he go? How much further can he go beyond that? How much further can he go beyond that? Where's the end? What's the end game here? It's got to be destruction. Yeah, David?
What ended up happening with Jeremiah? Was he one of the prophets that was like sawn in half or something?
He was carried off into Egypt. Yeah. Yeah, he was exiled into Egypt.
How about that guy that put him in the stocks? I hope he was one that got.
Oh, he gets his.
Okay.
Yeah. Yeah, he gets his. Yeah, that's the thing in Scripture. If you'll notice, they make it a point really to let you know, for the most part, the bad guys get theirs. You know, that's really what happens. Anybody else? Any thoughts?
And not only that, Yahweh said, they gonna keep on, and he said, turn his ear from what he ain't gonna hear him no way.
Right, he's not going to hear him anyway. And he doesn't hear him. If we don't listen to him and his word, he's not going to listen to us. I mean, well, yeah. Yeah, but how many are already too hardened to be remolded? You know, once you've been in that furnace and you've been hardened in a bad direction, there's nothing left. But, you know, we don't know when that point comes for people. We don't know when that point comes. Once again, the potter takes that lump of clay and he uses that wheel of circumstance to shape and mold us. Okay, when things are tough, you know, sometimes that clay there, well, oh, that hurts. That wheel spinning around. It's, you know, that's what's got to happen. That's what's got to happen. What good are we if we haven't suffered? You know people that haven't suffered or suffered very, very little? Or at least you perceive that? Usually you see that they're not worth much. I mean, that's the truth. But suffering's part of being shaped and molded. It hurts. Pain's part of that. Temptation's part of that. All those things go to make us into what he wants us to be. Anybody else?
That makes you feel like you need to repent and turn around and all that before you get hardened.
Absolutely. You need to repent before you get hardened. Wednesday, April 12th, Passover. Start looking at your cans in the pantry and whatever else you see. Start setting it aside. Check your soups. Make sure the dog food you've been buying is the kind that doesn't have yeast in it. Get all the yeast, get the leaven out.
Wait a minute. What did it come? If we're not eating it, I see it's still in our house.
Still in your house. That's right. And putting it in the garage and then bringing it out later, no. We don't do that. Like look, I found a 6-pack of beer that's a really good beer. I think I'll put that in the garage until after. No. Open it up, pour it out, get rid of it, throw it away. Just don't do that. That's sad. Drink it now, okay? Or at least before April 12th. Yes. All right, we'll pray and we'll be dismissed. Heavenly Father, we thank you for your word, and we do pray that we do remember when times are difficult for us, that these are circumstances where you're shaping and molding us for your use. And we praise your name for that, as we pray as your humble servants. Amen.